My dear friends, the most interesting thing in the world today, and the most important thing in terms of international relations, is what's happening in Libya. Because in Libya, there are a number of factions that are involved in the revolt against Gaddafi. And Gaddafi is boxed in by them, and they are continuing to struggle. Now, the question is, what will be the result of the struggle if and when they win? And that would be what form of democracy they develop for themselves. Now, democracy is something that every country should develop. But in every country, the democracy takes different forms, has a different history of development, have a different combination of points of view and ways of resolving the points of view. They are national in characteristics, and therefore democracy has to have a national characteristic. And that is the situation inside of Libya today. Now, the question is whether military action by a foreign power is helpful for the democratic development of Libya in the end. There could be other ways of helping them without military action, and that could be giving them some materials that they could use and use themselves, those who are fighting to liberate their own country. But the question of military foreign power getting involved is what was developed with the U.S. position when it proposed to the United Nations that they sanction military action. Well, having done that, it had to come to a vote. Well, the vote resulted in 10 voting with the United States and 5 voting against. Now, they voted against, although there was a possibility that they could have vetoed the bill. And the big question is going to be in many people's minds, why did they vote against it? Which meant that they were accepting the fact that the majority want military action, and that the United States was pushing for the military action. Why did they not veto that? Why did China and the other 4 countries take a different position? Let's see who the other 5 countries are. Number 1, it is BRIC. Now, what is BRIC? BRIC is Britain, Russia, India, and China. They formed an organization 2-3 years ago to work together to develop the developing countries and to give it substance and leadership. It said BRIC, all 4 voted against, and Germany voted also against. So that was the 5. I call that BRIC plus Germany. Very, very interesting that Germany has gone through some interesting developments about democracy. First, early democracy and the development of the welfare state, which is the idea that came from German capitalism. Then came fascism, World War II. And then after that, there was World War I and then World War II. But after that, they have developed democracy in China to a very, very deep degree, where they have several parties and a couple of left parties, and even left leadership in the top leadership in their congregations. Now, the end is that China is even doing very big business with Germany, and Germany gets all of the orders for the high-speed railroads and trains that China is doing, so that Germany, being more democratic in a sense and involving more sections of the population in the government, is acting differently from the other capitalist governments inside of Europe, which are still not fully sure of which way they want to go with regard to relation with China. So you have here an interesting combination in the world in a second movement of world development, like 2 different zones of economic and political activity. Economic activity in particular, with the West being dominated by U.S. finance capital, and the other grouping being having China as the strongest center, but it's still underdeveloped by 60% of its country underdeveloped. India is another underdeveloped, and then Brazil another, and so is Russia. So you have a lining up of the two groupings, so to speak, that determine where the 21st century is going. And this is a century of change, where there are two centers now in the movements within the world. And this is reflected in what's happening in Libya and what is happening with regards to countries outside of Libya and what they want to see happen. And the biggest question is whether one settles diplomatically or one settles by military operations in the international relations. It is one thing when you're within one country, and then you may have choices of which way to operate. But when you're a foreign country and you move your military into another country, that is already something that is quite different. And that is basically what imperialism have been doing for 100 years or more. And so we have an interesting clash of concepts as to how to deal with the proposal that the U.S. was making at the UN. The Chinese and the BRIC people and Germany apparently felt that if they vetoed the bill, it would stop military action and create a big furor on the question of military controls and military influences and participation. So by avoiding that, they are not taking a position to deal with the military question. The military question doesn't belong in the solution in the end for democracy in a particular country. Therefore, the five of them have taken the position that they would like to see the democracy develop in Libya, but it has to be with diplomatic help in every single possible way by the West and by the East. And that is where matters stand right now. So the big question historically with regards to Libya is to help the forces against Gaddafi in any possible way other than drop the bomb. So yesterday there was an article in the newspapers from China, and they have suggested that the bombing be shortened as quickly as possible. And I hope that that's what happens, because I don't want to see an extension of a form of solution of a civil struggle with a foreign power becoming involved. And that's a very good position for the 21st century. I thank you very much for listening. If you disagree with me, you have a right to get in touch. My number is S.J. Gluck, G-L-U-C-K, at AOL.com. S.J. Gluck at AOL.com. I thank you very much for listening.